Red Bull and Honda are officially splitting up from 2026 onwards, and it seems like they've already entered into a technical development war. The Japanese manufacturer was supposed to withdraw from the sport forever, but after signing a deal with Aston Martin, the team that has the potential to be Red Bull's fiercest rival in the upcoming years in the sport, it seems like the Austrian team has been alerted by the underlying threat that Honda poses, which is why they opted out for drastic measurements against them. Furthermore, these two sides are very likely to enter a war for the signature of one of the most prospective drivers on the grid, Yuki Tsunoda, and test where his loyalty currently lies. What will this war between Red Bull and Honda bring to the grid? And more importantly, does Honda hold the key to Red Bull's destruction? It goes without saying that Red Bull owes the majority of their success to Honda, and Honda owes the majority of their redemption process back in F1 to Red Bull after their failed tenure with McLaren. But for some strange reason, the Japanese manufacturer forced Red Bull to build their own powertrain division and be independent instead of continuing the collaboration for years to come. Honda believed that their place and future were not in F1, and due to their reluctancy, Red Bull decided that they had no time to wait. A couple of months after announcing their own powertrain project from 2026 onwards, Honda announced that they're also looking at options to return to the grid as an engine supplier from 2026 onwards. The technical regulation that was brought by the FIA and is set to take place in 3 seasons' time has also lured in Audi, a renowned branch from Volkswagen. And while they're entering the sport as an independent team, Honda decided that this would be too big of a step for them, which is why they signed a contract to supply Aston Martin with engines from 2026 onwards. This is definitely a huge slap in the face for Red Bull, because you can easily say now that they have laid the foundations of Honda's success in Formula One, and now that they've been playing at the hot and cold game with the Austrian team, they're very likely to be one of the fiercest competitors once the new regulations shake up the sport. Aston Martin has a lot of potential in the background, and while many don't believe in Alonso winning his 3rd championship of his career, we must also remind you of the leap that the Silverstone-based team made in 2023 compared to the previous season, with such strict regulations limiting their development rate. Furthermore, it seems like Lawrence Stroll has set his eyes on winning races, not just standing on the podium, an achievement that has been done several times in 2023 so far. And considering the wealth that he has behind his back, I don't see this as a too far-fetched scenario in 2026. But how does this apply to Red Bull, and is there anything they can do in order to stop it? For starters, the most obvious threat lies in the fact that Honda will be supplying Aston Martin with engines, and considering the fact that Red Bull already lost a number of staff to the Silverstone-based squad, starting with Dan Fallows, who's now the technical director of Aston Martin, this is not going to come without a bigger threat for Red Bull. If they want to continue the dominance, something that Helmut Marko is convinced will happen from 2026 onwards, as he labelled his team to be miles ahead of its rivals in terms of technical development, they would have to be much more considerate of the data they're currently sharing with Honda, and will continue to do so until 2025, and that's exactly what's going on right now. Koji Watanabe, Honda's Racing Corporation president, has spoken with De Telegraph, one of the most renowned F1 media outlets in the world, and he did admit that the Austrian team has started to hide information from them regarding their engine, but Honda is returning with the same measurement as well. They're also hiding their development path from Red Bull. Elaborating on this matter, Watanabe said, "Red Bull doesn't tell us anything about their engine, and we don't say anything to them about our development. So there is already a kind of information war going on at the moment. At Red Bull, they do have some knowledge about our current engine, but ultimately, we are responsible for the development and the whole process. Most of the knowledge is with us. Until 2025, I hope Red Bull wins everything, and from 2026, we will hopefully be their biggest competitor. Building a completely new engine is a huge challenge, but our goal is also to win a championship in the next era." Christian Horner has already asked the FIA to treat his team as rookies, just like Audi would be treated from 2026 onwards, and be given a preferential treatment considering the fact that technically they're going to be rookies in this entire world. However, this loophole didn't work in the eyes of the FIA, as they labelled the move as a cheeky one and confirmed that Red Bull would be treated exactly the same way as the other engine manufacturers except for Audi. This goes to show that while the Austrian team has all of the confidence that they're going to continue with the dominance from 2026 onwards, something that Pat Simmons, the CTO of Formula One, is also afraid of. The threat of Honda is not something they're going to leave to be solved on its own, mostly because there is yet another massive threat looming from behind, the signature of Yuki Tsunoda. The Japanese driver has been part of Red Bull's family from 2020 onwards, but he didn't come into F1 through their academy. He's been put in an AlphaTauri car, mostly because Honda required Red Bull to have one driver from their own academy racing as a full-time driver. While the first 2 seasons of Tsunoda in AlphaTauri were not that promising, marking him as a liability to any team that's likely to sign him, his performance in 2023 did show that he can grow under pressure and mature into a more solidified driver, something that Honda will definitely keep in mind once 2026 comes and Aston Martin might be in need of a second driver. It's safe to say that Lawrence Stroll is not going to crucify his son and replace him with another driver, and it's obvious that their ace up their sleeve right now lies in Fernando Alonso's performance. But if he's put under a lot of pressure from his investors as well as Honda, then this might be the likely outcome of the entire Stroll saga. Obviously, one of the most massive weaknesses that the Silverstone-based squad has right now is the fact that the majority of the points are scored by one driver only, with Alonso having 174 out of the 221 points of the team. And this is definitely not going to hold for the rest of the season, as McLaren are fiercely attacking the Silverstone-based team for 4th place in the Constructors' Championship by having 2 drivers that are consistently scoring points. The question is, where does Tsunoda's loyalty lie? In Red Bull, the team that actually made his F1 dream come true, or Honda, the manufacturer that managed to do the same as well? It's going to be a tough choice for the Japanese driver, but considering the pressure he's under from Liam Lawson, Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris for that Red Bull seat in the foreseeable future, I can't help but note that Tsunoda is definitely a massive threat to Red Bull's future plans if they had any bets to place on him driving alongside Verstappen. Tsunoda was also asked about this question during the Suzuka GP, and when talking about this, more precisely answering the question as to where his loyalty lies, the young driver went on to say, "Both, definitely. I mean, Honda has supported me from 16 years old, actually started from this track, Suzuka. So without them, obviously I'm not here, but at the same time, without Red Bull, I'm not here as well. So it's hard to say, but they are different. I think they combine very well as a junior category when I was a junior. They helped me in both ways, and it's balanced actually really well, so definitely both." Now, the question is whether Honda will try to aggressively shop Red Bull's driver and remind him of his roots and how he managed to make it into F1 in the first place, and considering the fact that they did set an ultimatum to Red Bull once their partnership became official back in 2018. This is not something the Japanese manufacturer would shy out of asking Aston Martin as well. They need results. They need high-performing drivers, and with the worst car on the grid, Tsunoda has currently scored 3 points, proving that if he has the right outlet, he could definitely be a threat to Verstappen and Red Bull's hopes of utter dominance. Do you think that Honda and Aston Martin will be Red Bull's fiercest competitors from 2026 onwards? And more importantly, do you think that Tsunoda will stay with Red Bull, or that he'll continue his joint project with Honda? Let us know in the comments below.